Okay, hello Earthlings again today. Thank you all for your comments on yesterday's video, and there are some very sensible questions on there which I'm going to try and answer and address. As I've said before, it's a very long, complicated story with lots of weirdness and intricacies and twists and turns. But firstly, we're not living on the breadline, because a few people have suggested we crowdfund or have buy me a coffee. I'm not going to do any of that. That's not the purpose of this. We're absolutely fine. As long as we've got a roof over our head, something to eat, and we're warm enough and we're all together and happy and healthy, that's what really matters. But thank you very much to the people who suggested that, but no, we're not going down that road. The channel is monetized. That's the limit of it. Number two, although it was really one of the most horrific things, the being arrested, and very emotional, the being released from Spanish prison, I have to say the Spanish prison is very clean and they run them very well, and they worry very much about the mental well-being and welfare of every single prisoner. The first thing that they do when they get you in your eventual prison is they lock everyone up for 24 hours with their new cellmate, and they do that, and they have people come visit the cell. They really want to see who's climbing the wall and for what, so that, not to punish them, but so they can find out, because not everybody admits to having an addiction. They can find out if you have a drug addiction, you have an alcohol problem, you have any mental health issues. And this is 20 years ago, and they were fantastic. They were ahead of the game. They had a fantastic education system in there, and I used to go to school to learn Spanish, and I really loved it, actually. I loved my teacher, and if only I could have taken her out of prison with me, my Spanish wouldn't be so bloody awful as it is today. I still struggle with that one. So the Spanish prison system, I cannot really say enough for them, and actually quite a few of my compañeras in the prison said to me, do you know what, Fiona, you're a right weirdo. If it wasn't for your family, you were just single and on your own, I reckon you could be a lifer here, because you like the food, you like your job, you like school, you're happy with the cell. They weren't really cells, it was a nice room. And I was happy as a pig in shit, actually, for the large proportion I was in there on my own. As soon as Sammy came to join me, that became a lot more stressful. And I'd advise anyone who was ever, in the unlikely event any of you guys are ever in a situation where you're in prison and you think it's a good idea to have your child join you, I'd actually advise against it. And they can only stay with you up to, I think, up to the age, well, in those days, up to the age of 2 or 3. My mate Rose had her little boy in there, and I think he was pushing 8. She was from Nigeria, and she had different circumstances, and I often said to her, how come you've got your little lad with you at that age? So Spanish prison is really, really well run. Now, a lot of people have asked, why was I arrested in the first place? I was arrested supposedly at the request of the British authorities as an extradition warrant. Now, it takes time for the Spanish, when a British police officer approaches a Spanish police officer, to a certain extent, the Spanish authorities will take the word and authority of the British officer that all is correct and above board, which is what Antonio and Noea did back in the day. Then once they've got you incarcerated, the wheels turn very slowly in the justice system, because you're not going anywhere. And it takes time to get hearings and for the various lawyers and the official translation of documents. And by the time all of that had taken place and there was an ultimate hearing, the Spanish discovered that all they had in front of them was an arrest warrant, which was signed by a magistrate from Mid-Sussex Magistrates. And it wasn't even signed, as I ultimately found out, by the Mid-Sussex Magistrates during a sitting hearing, because years later I was like a dog with a bone, I wouldn't let it go. I had the name of the magistrate because the Spanish gave me that. They said, this is the least you deserve. And I tracked down Mid-Sussex Magistrates, and they said she never signed that in court hearing. She signed that out of hours, because we've got no record of it. Make what you will of that. It was signed by this magistrate, by Steve Skerritt himself, and he'd done an accompanying statement. By the time the Spanish had translated it all, their lawyers had gone through it with a fine-tooth comb. We're talking Audiencia Nacional in Madrid. This is a serious top court. they just burst out laughing and said, "What the hell is this? It's like toilet paper. It's nothing. It means nothing." And that's when they phoned the director of the prison and said, "My God, get her out of that jail, because not only are you unlawfully holding her, it's like kidnapping, and you've got her daughter who's a minor." So from their point of view, they were very, very frightened and they're very worried. But again, I never sued them for it. I never held anything against the Spanish for it. The way the Spanish treated me, apart from the police cells, which they're just horrific. They're horrific. I can only think they do that in the police stations in Spain as a deterrent, and I'm certain it would work for a lot of people. So that's why I was being held. In fact, a lady from the embassy, the British consulate, came to visit me at one point and said, "What can I do?" And I said, "Get me out of here." And she said, "I can't. It's up to the Spanish." And I said, "It's nothing to do with the Spanish. It's supposedly the British realm that has asked for my incarceration and return to the UK." And she just had no answer to that. Now, I was never officially, as far as Sussex Police or any police force is concerned, I was never Britain's most wanted woman. Steve Skerritt went to the media and he had me featured on an ITV programme which was called Britain's Most Wanted, and there were lots of people on there. It didn't mean that any of, or all, or some of the people were actually on a Britain's Most Wanted hit list from any of the British authorities. It was just the name of a programme. My story popped up, and because my mother was a politician, Graham was a pilot, Graham's done smuggling cannabis in the past, it was all too colourful for words. So they picked it up, and then the Daily Mail picked it up, and the Daily Mail gave me the title Britain's Most Wanted Woman. So it was a media title. My arrest in Spain was a media headline. This is how it works. Now, Steve Skerritt, who we subsequently actually made friends with, I forgave him a long time ago, and we met up with him and I interviewed him, and Graham recorded it, and I have those interviews on this YouTube channel. They are private at the moment because I think it will just confuse everybody to see me and Steve Skerritt going at it over an interview. He was arrested and thrown out of Sussex Police they said over another matter. Okay, he was arrested not that long after I was released from prison. So you can see already it's a very complicated story, and I'm happy to answer questions and repeat things because when it's someone else's problem, of course it's hard to follow, isn't it? So he doesn't work for the police anymore, and he hasn't for a very long time. His approach to the whole situation was he found my location in Spain. He knew I would never agree to go back with him, so he staged effectively a fake mock-up extradition situation. He got the cooperation of the Spanish police. The Daily Mail were there with him. They had hired the car that drove everybody to the campsite, and he hoped that the horrors of Spanish prison would make me capitulate and go, "Do you know what, hands up, I'll just go back to Britain voluntarily," and that was that. But I didn't. I held out and said, "No, I'm not going back." And obviously I explained the story yesterday where I stuck by God and his word, it would all be all right, and as it turned out, it was not the proper paperwork. Now, the initial allegation was that I had run up company debt purposefully, me and 2 other people. The other 2 people, Steve Skerritt never showed a jot of interest in. They were blokes. Make what you will of that. I still have many questions myself to this day. Me, on the other hand, I was the target. Why particularly Sussex Police always had such a bee in their bonnet about me, I do not know. When my mother retired, she was a Tory politician, and we had the surname Mont, M-O-N-T, very distinctive. My parents, when they retired, moved to the Outer Hebrides, and I moved into my 1-bedroom flat, and I was so proud I wanted my name in the phone book, which instantly made me the only Mont left in the Sussex or Brighton and Hove phone directory, immediately making me a political target for any of my mother's old foes to come and have a go at me. That I know for sure, that certain people who worked in the council, police officers are human beings. They have left-wing policy, they have right-wing, they can be what they want, that's up to them. And some people are so fanatical about their politics, they're willing to have a go at people's kids. I've seen people have a go at Nigel Farage's kids, Tony Blair's kids, Margaret Thatcher's kids. I mean, that's low, I think. You should never have a go at somebody's kids because their parent is a politician. But unfortunately, it does happen. So that was not a great start to my life of independence, living in my one-bedroom flat. So that didn't help. And my family were always a bit of an enigma to everybody. They thought they were the hoi polloi. So my story goes right back to basically when I was at school. And that's a lot to fit into one video or answer all of the questions. But basically, my whole situation was a media witch hunt. And again, I'll repeat that I'm certain there are different people who work at the Daily Mail and other newspapers today. Different generation, not the same as it was in my day. And also, there was a lot of corruption in Sussex police back in the day, which a few commenters have said they remember. They remember. There was a guy, he was gunned down. He was naked in bed, wasn't he? And he was gunned down by armed police, and they said they thought he was armed. Man was naked. There was a big doodah over that. In fact, when David Blunkett was the Home Secretary, I think he wrote to the Chief Constable, correct me if I'm wrong, was Paul Whitehouse at the time, same Chief Constable I had, and said, you're either resign or I'm going to come down to Sussex and fire you because you've not got it in hand. And Sussex police also are a very different animal these days than they were back in the day. So you've got to remember, this is a 20-year-old story. And I can't remember if I mentioned everything else. There's always something. When I look at the video, I think, oh, damn, I forgot to say that. But no, we're all right. We're all fine here. We're not on the breadline. I don't want anybody thinking that. And she who must not be named has uploaded a Rumble. You guys who know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. There's a Rumble there now. I'm actually halfway through watching it myself now. So the upshot of it is that you do sometimes get coppers that are willing to bend the rules to such an extent as a sort of a means to an end to get something done. Well, me and Steve Skerritt, we're never going to agree. We're never going to be best buddies, but we've had, over the 10, 15 years ago, I think it was, we've had coffees together. And do you know what he said to me? He said, one day you'll laugh about this, Fiona. And it's true. Graham and I laughed. I think it was in the middle of the lockdown. We were in a serious 14-week severe lockdown here in Spain. And we laughed. And I said, oh, look at that. Only took about 18 years for us to laugh about it. But I don't laugh about it very often. In case Steve Skerritt's watching this. I know what you mean, Steve. Maybe I'll laugh my head off about it one day. I doubt it. Anyway, and as very kind comments everybody's posted, but the final thing I'd like to say is it's a really weird story. It was a bizarre event. It wasn't a pleasant situation, the being arrested and all that prison stuff. But I mean, on the whole, we were very happy just being together and travelling around Europe. It's not the same as when someone has cancer, or if someone is looking after a dependent relative, a carer situation, and you don't get any respite. You have relatives with Alzheimer's, people who've had tragedies in their life. So I like to keep it in proportion. Although it was a weird thing to go through and not always pleasant thing to go through, it's not the end of the world, if you know what I mean, because there are people out there who've got serious bloody problems. My heart goes out to them, and we're fine. We're just telling the story now. Take me 20 years to be able to speak of it. So I'll look forward to hearing any questions or comments as always, and peace out, fellow earthlings.